A lot of what you believe about yourself and even reality is built on misunderstandings. How this begins is really biology. It's cognition. Our brains are meaning-making machines. From your infancy throughout your life and until you take your last breath, your brain is always trying to understand what's happening. Who are all the cast of characters? How do I feel about this? How do they feel about this? What's happening? What's the tone of the total environment? All of that is part of the meaning that's being made in any given moment in time. The accumulation of many meanings being made is really how you become who you are right now. So from the time that you are an infant through your adolescence into adulthood, your brain is making meaning out of things. It's really what colors your values, your beliefs, your perception of right, wrong, good, bad. And what's also happening are often a lot of misunderstandings, because all you're able to know in that moment is based on a perception of reality at that given moment in time. And there are so many things, as I just shared, that go into impacting that. So you can imagine the number of deductions your beautiful brain has made that are truly misunderstandings. Another way misunderstandings are flooding our existence are through the systemic constructs of society, the rules of life, some of which were created centuries ago, that are still directing what we believe is possible, what we believe is true, what we believe is good or bad, or the right thing to do or versus the wrong thing to do. A lot of what creates the constraints of society are built on a lot of misunderstandings. Any innumerable examples of misunderstandings that might be defining your life right now. So these rules of life are how these misunderstandings get reinforced. And then there are the misunderstandings that create our identity. Because of that meaning making, as I mentioned, and the natural part of humans and human development and human evolution, we are making decisions about really powerful things as a child, for example, when we don't have a lot of context about what does it even mean to be alive. We don't even have the responsibilities that we're going to have when we become an adult. But that doesn't mean that the brain and the cognition isn't still trying to understand. When you are becoming who you are, especially at that young age, your nucleus, your origin, your family, the home that you grew up in, that is a powerful construct that is essentially helping you form your identity. And within that experience, there are a number of misunderstandings. Children all the time determine an idea about something that's happening with the adults that are there to keep them safe. And those decisions that children make go on to form how we relate, how we see the world, what we think is okay, what we think is safe, where anxiety comes from, when we feel protected. And let me just share an example of what I'm talking about from the identity perspective. I grew up raised by a single mom. My father was a successful traveling musician, and my mom essentially was running the house by herself. What I didn't know then was some of the traumatic things that my mother had actually gone through before she met my father and had me. What I do recall, and how I would describe this definitely evolved over time. I had this experience, this perception that my mother was never at ease, never satisfied, which for me really meant she wasn't happy. That's how I experienced her. It was the emotional atmosphere that I grew up in. And at some point, I made a decision, because every child wants not only to feel safe and feel comfortable and feel good, but you want your loved ones to be okay. Even if you're a child and not an adult and you don't quite understand, you still have some of the same primal instincts. And at some point, I made the decision that it was going to be on me to fill that gap, that perception of that gap that she had. So my entire life became the pursuit of something that not only was impossible, but really was not my responsibility. That formed a big part of my identity because it went on to inform a lot of how I related to myself and my life. The part of her that I felt like wasn't satisfied was a lot around money and feeling like we had enough. So that made me very ambitious and very driven. It also became, for a long time unconsciously, a primary focus of mine, so much so that I really only stayed focused on my career and really her. I never would have thought about it exactly like that then, but I can see that now. It became a level of identifying with some fulfillment, of achievement, of if I could do that, then I would be okay, then I would be happy. I definitely have had some healing since then. I've even actually updated my understanding about what happened. And the point I'm really getting at is that all of us are making decisions about what things mean. And I would offer that most of them are misunderstandings because they are built on a limited amount of insight, information, and intellect, if you will, at that moment. And the opportunity then becomes to inquire, to check in on, to investigate, to see which misunderstandings might be driving and directing our life, and which of those do we need to put to rest, rewrite, update. There are so many ways that we are being led by misunderstandings, many of which have not been questioned or examined. And that's the opportunity to slow down and see what might actually not be true. Until next time.